Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at and installing the Excel high performance fuel injectors for 1987 to 2004 V8 Mustangs. These injectors here are 19 pound an hour injectors, so they're stock size replacements. They are high performance fuel injectors though, so what I can say about them is that they have a very fine fuel spray, and that's going to help with fuel atomization and with burn efficiency as well. These are EV1 body style fuel injectors. They come with O-rings already on them, and they are sold as a set of 8. It costs about $300 because they are 19 pound an hour injectors. I will say that they're going to be best suited for naturally aspirated builds. Anything more than that is going to require more fuel than what these injectors can deliver. As far as the install goes, I'll call it a 2 out of 3 wrenches in the difficulty meter, and of course, we'll show you how to get them installed now. For this install, we used a 3/8 drive impact gun, a small extension, a 1/4 inch ratchet, an 8mm socket both in 1/4 inch and 3/8, a 5mm Allen key, a flathead screwdriver, and an adjustable wrench. Alright guys, so we're going to start the install by disconnecting our intake. Now we have an Air Raid cold air intake on this car. You may have a different intake or even a stock intake. I know that we're going to be using an 8mm socket in order to undo this. I'm going to leave the air filter and mass airflow sensor in place and just remove our tube here and all of the lines connecting. Alright guys, now we're going to get ready and go ahead and pull the BBK throttle body intake off. So depending on your exact setup at home, it's going to be a little bit different probably, but it's still going to be really similar to this. We're going to go ahead and disconnect all of our electrical connections and all the vacuum lines. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is actually disconnect our EGR. I have an adjustable here. Alright, so now we're going to completely remove the BBK throttle body intake, and what I've done is I've left everything connected as far as the bracket and the throttle cable goes. You'll see what I'm going to do. I'm literally just going to lift this off and set it over to the side. Now you may or may not be able to do that at home depending on what exactly you're working with. If you have a stock intake manifold, you're probably going to have to completely remove it from the car and not leave it sitting over on the side like we're going to be able to do with the BBK here. So we're going to go ahead, remove all 4 bolts, and then set this off to the side. Alright guys, so next we're going to unplug all of our injectors and get the harness out of the way. Alright, so my plan for this is actually to leave the fuel rail in the car, and I'm going to swap injectors out right here, so we're not even going to disconnect our fuel rail. So we have a little keeper here on our harness. You guys can disconnect this sensor if you'd like to as well. Just move it out of the way. And we have 2 8mm bolts that are holding our fuel rail in place on the manifold. So we'll go ahead, we're going to loosen those. The second one's back here. You may just have to hold this hose out of the way. Alright, so we'll do the same thing on this side. We're going to go ahead, disconnect our injectors. And we're going to move this harness out of the way. Alright guys, so what we're going to do now is we are going to lift our fuel rail and our injectors up. We'll do one side at a time. So what I'm going to do is I want to remove the fuel injector from the intake manifold. I don't want the fuel injector to stay in the intake manifold and pop out of the rail up here. So I'm going to grab each injector. I'm going to wiggle them a little bit because they're held in place by O-rings, and I'll pull up. You see how all my injectors stayed in the fuel rail? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab a rag and then I'll just pull each injector out of the fuel rail. All right, so now I'm gonna take a shop rag and I'm actually gonna wrap it around the injector because I'm expecting some fuel when I pull the injector out of the fuel rail here, and I just want the rag to soak it up. So I have the rag wrapped around the injector and I'm going to wiggle the injector out of the fuel rail. I'm just gonna hold here for a second because I can feel fuel spilling and I just want the rag to soak it up. Two things I want to point out. Since our new injectors have O-rings on them already, once you pull your injectors, you're going to want to check both the top and the bottom to make sure the O-ring stayed on. It looks like the bottom O-ring is still in place on this injector, but the top O-ring is still in the fuel rail. So I want to make sure that I pull that O-ring out of the fuel rail before I install the new injector. All right, so I'm going to take a little flathead screwdriver. I'm going to reach up inside the fuel rail here, and I can already feel the O-ring. I'm just going to pull it out. All right, so now we'll grab a new injector. We'll get that seated into the fuel rail. It just pops right into place. And for now, we're gonna leave this sitting up and we're gonna replace all of the other injectors the same way. All right, so once again, we'll wrap our rag around the injector. We'll wiggle the injector out of place. We're gonna check for our O-ring, which stayed on, in both cases, both top and bottom, so we know we're good to go. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing on this side. We'll grab our injectors, wiggle them out of the manifold, take our rag, wrap it around our injector. We'll check for our O-ring, it's still on here. So we can grab a new injector, get that seated in the fuel rail, and move on to the next one. All right, so with all of our injectors in place, what we're gonna do is we're gonna line up the fuel rail and seat the injectors into the intake manifold and bolt our fuel rail back down. All right, so we're gonna get our bolts back in place. All right, so now we'll bring our harness back into place. We have a couple connections to plug back in. And then we'll head over to the other side and bolt it down over there. All right, so move the harness out of the way. We'll get our fuel injectors seated into the intake manifold. Grab our bolts. Now we'll plug our injectors back in. All right, so now we're gonna get our throttle body and intake in place. All right, so now we are going to get our EGR back into place and tighten it down. All right, now at this point with our intake manifold back in place, we are going to make all of our vacuum line and electrical connections. All right, now we're gonna get our intake tube back in place. So I'm making sure that my clamp is ready to go. Gonna slide into our coupler down here. All right, and now we can tighten down our clamps. All right, and all we have left to do is reconnect our connections here. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up this review and install. Keep in mind, you can always check these fuel injectors out more online right here at AmericanMuscle.com.